It's sort of, is it like a mascot of the town at
He,
all?
in a lot of people's minds, he's the default mascot for the town and for the public school system here.
Okay.
So that's another reason that people are connected to this sculpture. I've been told that in the 70s, especially when the Skowhegan High School and the Madison High School were competing against each other, say in football or maybe other team sports, the Skowhegan Indian sculpture was the focus of pranks by kids from Madison.
Oh.
Yeah. I was told that kids from Madison would come here and shoot arrows at him, I guess. Things like that.
Do you know of any other kind of, you were mentioning other like personal memories related to the Indian? Do you have any examples in mind?
I have things that I've just heard from people in personal conversation as well as on Facebook are things like, I had one person to tell me, when I was a small child, I called him Jesus because, I thought of him as this almost, godly deity kind of thing because he was so big and tall, and then growing up we realized it's a sculpture of an American Indian. He's not a religious figure, but he's so physically imposing, especially to a small child, that it had an almost religious effect on this person. So that's one memory. Another memory that has been shared with me is somebody who grew up in southern Maine and or New Hampshire, but who had family in central Maine. And every time she was visiting family, it was the priority, I think, of her father. Every time they were coming through Skowhegan, they needed to stop at the Indian. They needed to get out and see it and enjoy it for a little while, while they were passing through town or while they were visiting town. That was a very important part of the visit for her. So she has fond memories of coming to town and just the enthusiasm of her father, kind of rubbing off on her. And as we've been doing this fundraising effort, we've been getting attention online from people all over the country. And these are probably people who grew up in the area or otherwise have some family connection and have moved away. But, we've been as we've been selling t-shirts as a fundraiser, we've been sending them to places like Massachusetts, Texas.
Wow.
Yeah.
All the way to Texas as
Yeah.
well?
Yeah, I think Texas is the furthest we've sent a t-shirt so far.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure these are people who know about the t-shirts through Facebook. So they've been using that largely. Facebook and then also the Main Street Skowhegan website as two online resources for information on the restoration work and the fundraising effort. And people have been donating online also from these faraway places.
Oh, wow. That's fantastic. I didn't know it had such a far reach. Also, like, just a little bit about what would happen in town once the Indian is restored. Like, I know that Katie was telling us about the huge celebration when it was finally put in place.
Yeah.
So we're wondering about what kind of celebration it's going to be, and what do you have in mind?
Right. It's far enough away to where we don't have plans, but I think it would be a big mistake to put all this money and effort into the restoration work without publicizing it a lot. So that involves publicizing ahead of time, making sure that the restoration work is documented, while it's going on, and also some kind of a completion event, whether it's a ribbon cutting or something like that.
Right.
Anyway.
Just a strange question, but do you think more people have engaged with the Skowhegan Indian on Facebook than in reality?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, it's easier to measure on Facebook because when people press the like button, there's a number associated with that.
Yeah.
And similarly, when people comment on it, so it's more measurable.
Yeah.
And also, I manage the Facebook page, so when people interface with the Facebook page, I know about it. I'm in track of it. When people go up and look at the Indian and then read the sign, which is in front of it that says we're halfway, which is not true anymore because now we're more like 92% of the way there.
Right.
Because we put that sign up before town meeting in June where we got a lot closer.
Right.
Anyway, to the fundraising goal. You know, I have no way of knowing that people are doing that, you know.
Right.
But even just people informally talking to, you know, you guys or Margie Brown at the farmers market or whatever, you know, that it's harder to track that stuff. So, but we're also reaching people in faraway towns and states, as I mentioned, that is just impossible face to face, you know.
Right.
But we can do that online.
Okay.
And generally, how do you feel that the community here, the residents, feel about this sculpture? Do you feel a strong sense of attachment, or
like you said, pride?
I feel both. I feel there's a lot of people have very personal memories and stories concerning this sculpture, whether it has to do with their days attending high school here in Skowhegan, growing up in Skowhegan, their parents showing them the structure when they were growing up, things like that. That people have, you know, pretty intimate connections with this sculpture in terms of their personal history within Skowhegan. At the same time, a lot of people are concerned with the money it costs to restore the Indian. A lot of people are concerned with the Indian's location right now, because, as I've already explained, he's awkwardly placed right now. So there's been a lot of people who have been resistant to putting any effort toward restoring him unless there's effort put into moving him. And so that has definitely been explored, but the decision of the committee has been to keep him in place for a couple of different reasons. One is that there's no contractor wants to do it. So that's an important reason not to do it, is because nobody wants to, or even probably can. And I'm talking about a conversation with Chinbro, one of the larger engineering and you know, firms that do this kind of thing. They build bridges, they build oil rigs, you know. They have said that they don't want to touch this in terms of moving it, because it's wooden cladding on a steel framing set into concrete, poured concrete base. For all intents and purposes, they consider it impossible to move, or at least that there are too many dangers involved with moving it. But another argument for keeping him in place is that even though he seems poorly placed right now, we don't necessarily need to give up on the spot where he's located, because there's an opportunity to revitalize the area around him, rather than giving up on that parking lot and moving him to some place that's already better, you know.
Yeah. So that brings you back to the question that why was he placed there in the first place? Which is related to, I believe, there's some sort of earlier planning that was happening. I think we spoke of it before when I came with Sarah as well.
And I'm a little fuzzy on those details because, you know, like I said, I've only been here since March, and we're talking about decisions that were made in 1966, 69. Well, 66 is when Bernard Langley was originally commissioned, and then 69 was when the sculpture was completed.
Right.
So I'll just offer the fuzzy details of the caveat that the details are fuzzy. And somebody else might know better. In fact, if you get in touch with Katie Willett, I think she's the best historian on this. Have you been in touch with her?
Yeah, we did, yeah.
Have you interviewed her?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Did you see the binder?
Yes.
the binder.
Okay, so hopefully she remembers this stuff better than I do, but my understanding is that he's placed where he is because he was at the end, the sculpture is located at what used to be the terminus of a railroad spur on the main Central Railroad that serviced Skowhegan, a spur off of the main line. So what is now the central downtown municipal parking lot, and then this parking lot, which is sort of an adjunct to the central parking lot, both of those were part of a larger rail yard. And the rail connection continued across what is now the pedestrian bridge that's sort of behind MTI downtown.
And that was still active in the 60s?
I can't say for certain when that ended, when service ended and when those tracks are torn up. I've been told by a couple of different people that this sculpture was moved here by the rail, which I have a hard time believing because I don't. Selena? Hey, Selena. Oh, do you see? When do you think the passenger service stopped? Rail service stopped in Skowhegan. When did that? Do you remember that big parking lot having rail lines in it, or there being a railroad bridge where the pedestrian bridge is now? Anything like that?
I bet no.
You don't remember any of that stuff?
40s, because I was in the 50s, so
Yeah.
40s.
So as early as the 1950s, you don't remember there being like a rail line going across Water Street or anything like that?
because you used to walk across the walking bridge to A&P, which is where Augustron was. That was a grocery store.
Mhm.
There wasn't no railroad up there.
Right. So the couple of people I've heard tell me that he was moved here on rail car, I don't know how that was possible, but
Okay.
I've heard it. But what is clearly true is that this parking lot and the central parking lot were once part of a rail yard that I'm willing to believe, willing to bet was owned by the Maine Central Railroad. It was owned. It was a railroad land. So whoever owned it, it was rail land. And at some point, ownership transitioned to the town of Skowhegan. So Bernard Langley, I'm sure, saw an opportunity for making a park here on the corner. I was told that there was also a grist mill somewhere on this property at that time, perhaps where Cumberland Farms is now on the corner.
So you said Bernard Longley wanted to build a park here?
I don't know that he would have done it, but that maybe the entity that commissioned the sculpture, which is the Skowhegan Hospitality Association, or Tourism and Hospitality Association,
Yeah.
which I'm also pretty sure is the predecessor of the chamber.
Yeah.
That might have been their plan. Whoever's plan it was, it didn't come through. And so the town land got paved for a parking lot, and Cumberland Farms got developed on the corner.
So that park was supposed to be the similar idea to Bernard Longley's sculpture park that you're talking about now? Like, was his sculpture supposed to be in those parks? Or, no, you don't know. It's hard
What
to
I
tell.
know is that there was some plan by somebody at the time that this sculpture was made. There was some plan by somebody to turn this, all or part of this area, into a park. I think Katie Willett told me that the grist mill that existed somewhere on this land, probably on the corner, that grist mill was maybe going to be turned into a museum of some kind. I don't know what kind of museum. So there was definitely plans to integrate the Indian sculpture into more public purpose park and or museum kind of attraction. But clearly all of that fell on the wayside because the town land got paved with asphalt for parking, absolutely no other combinations. And the corner lot got developed as a gas station.
If you know something about Bernard Longley, could you tell us, like, was he from? He lived in Cushing.
I'm pretty sure he was raised in Old Town.
in Old Town, which
And
is
I'm
part
saying
of
that
Skowhegan?
because no, that's a completely separate town.
Oh, okay.
And I'm saying that because the sign says Bernard Langley of Old Town.
Okay.
So that's my source of information on that.
Okay.
So I'm pretty sure he was raised and or born in Old Town, Maine, which is just north of Bangor, Maine, or Orono, just north of Orono, Maine, really,
Oh.
or near Orono, Maine. I think it's north of Orono, certainly north of Bangor. And I know that he was a student of, and I'm pretty sure he was faculty
Yeah,
of
at
the Skowhegan School
Right,
of Painting
right.
and Sculpture. So that's his connection. Oh, and his wife, I'm pretty sure, was from Skowhegan, the town, Skowhegan. But that later on in life, he settled in Cushing, and that's where his estate is.
Does he have Native American, is he Native American or
Some people say maybe yes. I don't really know.
no?
Yeah, I'm not really sure if he has any native descent.
Okay. Do you know about is there like Native American population still in Maine or?
Oh yeah, there certainly
Yeah?
is. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like a lot of places in the United States, there are there are Native American populations, and obviously their numbers are greatly reduced as compared to a couple hundred years ago.
In Skowhegan, is there any?
Well, this guy, the sculpture of the Skowhegan Indian, he is modeled after an Abenaki, which is the nation that lived in Skowhegan before white settlers. And my understanding is the Abenaki as a native nation of Maine is extinct. I think they were all killed in warfare, and this would have been at least 200 years ago. At least 150, I would think. But I think a lot of those battles happened actually in the 18th century. However, there are other nations that live on and off reservations in Maine. There's a Passamaquoddy Nation down east Maine. They have a reservation near Lubec. In Old Town, Maine, there's a reservation for the Penobscot. And the Micmac, I think, are in northern Maine.
Okay.
So, and a lot of these nations are part of what used to be, or may still be, I'm not sure, Wabanaki Confederacy, and that was like the overarching umbrella for various nations or tribes within the state of Maine.
Right.
And at least a couple of those tribes have representation in the Maine legislature. I know the Penobscot do, and I think the Passamaquoddy do.
Okay.
It may just be those two, but I'm a little hazy on those details.
Okay.
But suffice to say, there are, they are still a presence in Maine for sure.
And are they like? Do they know about? Do you know if they know about?
Yeah, I don't know that anybody doing the restoration has been in formal contact with anybody, representing any of these tribes.
Okay.
But it's a good point. I mean, I think it would be a good idea, especially because, as I'm sure Katie Willett mentioned, I'm not sure from what nations, maybe Penobscot, because they're probably the closest in terms of where the reservation is. Though I think also Penobscot is probably the most populous nation. People calling themselves Penobscot. I think there's more Penobscot in Maine than there are Passamaquoddy, Micmac, or any other tribe or nation in Maine. One or more of those nations had a presence at the commemoration of the sculpture back in 1969.
Yeah, we've seen photographs of it.
Yeah, there were people in traditional dress and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, if we could have some kind of a modern rendition of that, whatever they wanted to do, if they wanted to be part of that, that would be fantastic.
Right. But there's no one in Skowhegan.
Certainly no formal presence. I mean, I haven't personally met anybody who identifies as Native in Skowhegan, and I know that there aren't any reservations immediately nearby, and there is no formal structure, governance, or anything Native governance in the immediate area. So we would probably be sending invitations to places like the Indian Island Reservation in Old Town, or the Passamaquoddy Reservation near Lubec.
Right. Do you know of the other Indian sculpture that was that's in Maine in Freeport?
There's the other, I think the most noteworthy sculpture of an Indian in Maine besides this guy is in Freeport.
Yeah. Do you know what that's about, or?
I'm pretty sure he's a sign for a business.
Sign for business.
Yeah,
okay.
that's all. I'm pretty sure he's on Route 1. He's really tall. Oftentimes, when I tell people that this guy is the tallest sculpture of an American Indian in the world, they say, "You mean taller than the one in Freeport?" And I say, "Yes, taller than the one in Freeport." And part of that is because Freeport's in southern Maine, and there's just more people there. Part of it is because I'm from southern Maine, so I know a lot of people from southern Maine that I'm talking to. And then part of it is because he's on Route 1 in front of a business on a highly trafficked route, and this guy's sort of tucked away right now on a slightly less traveled route.
Have you seen the Freeport Indian? No.
I've passed by him before, yeah.
And do you know what business it is?
I don't remember. I don't know. I'm sure if you looked him up online, you'd get some information about him. He's something of a roadside attraction.
Okay. It was built in the same year, though.
69? Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
built in the same year.
I didn't know that.
That's kind of fascinating.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I didn't even realize they were building exactly the same year.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
It looks very different though.
Right.